Welcome to the Point Podcast. We have informed, intelligent conversations about today's financial topics submitted by viewers like you. Let's go ahead and get started. Here are your hosts, Landis Wiley and Alan Wallace.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of The Point, sponsored by Basepoint Wealth. I'm your host, Landis Wiley, sitting here as always with Alan Wallace, Chief Investment Officer. Appreciate you taking the time today to tune in. If this is your first time here, welcome. The way that this works, Alan and I love to talk about finance. And so we thought it would just be fun to invite you into one of our conversations. The twist is we have no idea what we're going to talk about. Right. So we've got a hat full of topics that have been submitted by you, the viewer, and the folks at Basepoint Wealth. And in just a couple minutes, we'll reach in, pick out a topic, and see what we get to banter about. So before we get into that, we like to kick off each episode with a brief segment called The Most Important Thing. And as the title says, the most important thing is something going on in the world of finance today that may be impacting your pocketbook, may be impacting your portfolio, or may just be something that's driving economic news of the day. So without further ado, Alan, what's the most important thing?
The most important thing right now is artificial intelligence, or AI. Confidence in the future of AI is at an all-time high and reminiscent of the rise of the internet in the late 1990s. Any stock remotely connected to AI is surrounded with euphoria. NVIDIA, previously the largest company in the world before a small recent correction with a market capitalization of $3.2 trillion, is the major supplier of graphics processing units, or GPUs, and it is important to note that the total revenue of all AI applications in the United States is still only $200 billion per year. The major players in AI right now are also the largest companies in the world. NVIDIA as the creator of hardware, and Microsoft, Apple, Amazon.com, Meta, and Alphabet as the developers of software models. Staggering amounts of money are being shoveled into capital expenditures and building of data centers to power AI technology. It is estimated that in 2024, all of these companies will spend over $20 billion on AI research and development, with the largest, Microsoft, eclipsing $40 billion. Much of this will go to the purchase of GPUs from NVIDIA. Signs are emerging that faith in AI are starting to waver for two distinct reasons. First, as previously mentioned, the cost of AI is enormous. And secondly, finding ways to monetize the end product are proving elusive. While AI is fun to play with and saves time in many applications, it still takes significant time to verify that results are accurate, and AI is prone to hallucination and simply making things up. With interest rates rising and the cost of capital increasing, it may become much more difficult for companies to convince shareholders that these investments will eventually pay off. Any future recession could cause this entire feedback loop between hardware investments and developers to break down, which right now includes over 32% of the S&P 500's equity allocation. A final note is that this entire system rests on an already vulnerable power grid. Nuclear reactors are being put back online just to feed the intense hunger for power that these models require to run. There is increasing competition for power between data centers running AI, power to charge electric vehicles, and miners processing cryptocurrency algorithms. The strain on our energy grid comes at a time when we are trying to move to more renewable and sometimes less reliable sources of energy. There is no question that AI will remain relevant at some level far into the future. As with most technological innovations spanning the last 200 years, like railroads, telephones, automobiles, airplanes, and the internet, it feels like the expectations greatly exceed reality, and so much depends on this technology pitching a perfect game. Many people could see enormous losses in their portfolios if they have large exposures to AI. So keep your eye on your personal exposure to AI and be careful.
Today's episode is brought to you by Basepoint Wealth. A question for you to consider: is your present financial strategy working for you? Do you want another viewpoint? It may be time to talk to the experts at Basepoint Wealth. Call 319-826-1898 now for a complimentary financial consultation. Take control of your financial future with Basepoint Wealth.
All right, welcome back to The Point. Alan, thanks for that segment. Always informative. Well, we're going to get here to the meat and potatoes of our show and pull up our hat, figure out what we get to talk about. So always enlightening and entertaining, we hope.
And a little terrifying.
So, all right, let's see what we get to chat about today. We need people to send in some more topics because hats run a little low here. So, all right, what do we got? How might the recent developments in artificial intelligence change the financial landscape, wealth management landscape? Will AI advisors make human advisors obsolete? All right.
Good one.
Perfect. So obviously, artificial intelligence, it's been around since, 1983 when the first Terminator movie came out.
Yeah.
I think that was my first experience with AI, as you will.
But also remember, that's sort of the marriage of AI and robotics.
Right.
So AI is at a certain point, robotics is at a certain point. I saw the robots stacking boxes at Amazon warehouse, and looks like they've got quite a ways to go before they're chasing us down the street.
Right. Well, and hopefully it works out better for humanity the next time that
Sure.
that rolls around. So,
Right.
so AI obviously has been a topic of big conversation, particularly in 2023. It seemed like it was all you would hear about back in January, February. Certainly impacted the investing world to start the year because a number of companies had their share prices sort of shoot to the moon.
It reminds me a little bit of 1999, when if you had the word .com in your name, your stock immediately went up by 5 times.
Right.
Anything to do with AI in this market has been a little higher, and it's sort of been creating this little mini bubble. The largest companies in the S&P are sort of remotely tangential to AI. You got NVIDIA that makes the chips, and you've got Microsoft that's sort of working on the large language models, and Google and Apple and all those other companies are sort of dabbling in AI as well. And so it's been driving the stock prices.
Right. And for a lot of people that are tuning in, maybe what they might be familiar with, or more familiar with from the standpoint of AI is Chat GPT, right? Lots of news about Chat GPT. And, initially when that first rolled out, I think it was kind of the new thing on the block and really exciting. And so immediately everybody's thoughts went to, oh my gosh, this is going to replace my job. This is going to replace this profession or what have you. Clearly, since then, there's been a number of stories that have come out about maybe some inherent weaknesses.
Yeah, we've tempered our expectations, I believe. There was the story of the attorney who was using ChatGPT to write his legal briefs. And when the judge went to look up all the references or the cases cited, he found that they were completely fictitious. So the thing about AI is that it doesn't mind telling you a lie or making something up in order to tell a good story. And we've talked about this before, and that's the divergence of confidence and competence. The AI comes across as highly confident, but when you dig down deeper, you see that it's lacking in competence in some cases.
Right. And so I guess, to the question of how is AI going to specifically change our industry, and, is it going to a degree, maybe render advisors obsolete or money managers obsolete? Maybe that's a good place to start.
Sure.
Is it just has weaknesses right now. It doesn't necessarily know everything that humans at this point know, let alone, getting into, financial advising is about more than just knowing facts, right? It's about understanding people and understanding circumstances. And so, as we look at AI, where do we see opportunity for AI in what we're doing?
So the most applicable usage for me is just in sort of organizing data, right? Making it contextual instead of having to sift through things. Being able to ask questions in plain English and have responses produced, So if you have all of your data running through an AI model and you want to know, how many people in this group are over age 70 and a half, and it can produce that immediately without having to use Boolean logic. Through some sort of filtering system. You can ask a direct question in plain English and receive a response. And to me, I think that sort of librarian of data is the best use case for it. The issue is that all of our knowledge is derived either through reason or experience. And reason is sort of easy to get because you can download thousands of formulas from the internet. And I think that's really where AI is applicable, is in loading logic and formulas and things like that. So purely reason, but it lacks judgment. It doesn't have experience. It doesn't experience emotional responses. It doesn't work directly with clients. And so, we've got hundreds of years of experience here in dealing with real problems. And so it's experience that tells you what problems you're facing. And so that's the issue, is trying to preload thousands of years worth of history into an LLM is virtually impossible. So while you can upload a lot of formulas and maybe even know how to process them, knowing when they're relevant and knowing what the exceptions are is almost impossible to program. And keep in mind that these things are programmed by humans. So it'd be virtually impossible for them to know something that humans don't already know. And unfortunately, a lot of things that humans know are just plain wrong.
Right. Well, and you hit on something early on there that is fascinating to me as far as the use of AI, particularly in our space. So much of what we do in working with clients is data driven, right? It's getting facts, it's getting statement values, it's getting tax information, income information, and expense information, and then trying to take that and push it through essentially a series of questions to figure out what topics matter based on the facts and circumstances that are there. One of the biggest challenges that financial advisors face is, particularly those that are handling really comprehensive planning for a client, is there's just a massive amount of data. There's a ton of data points there, and knowing how to go filter that data to narrow it down to which things matter that I need to look at is a pretty arduous task.
Right.
And frankly, for any one person out there trying to do that, as a one-man band, so to speak, it's fairly easy to overlook something.
Sure.
Whereas it seems like maybe some opportunity where AI could step in is if I can provide the artificial intelligence system with that same information and then simply ask it questions in normal conversational language and allow it to translate that into the yes, no, or the binary, go this way, yes, this applies, no, it doesn't. Right. That seems like something that might be applicable.
It could be, but the big issue that we have is that the context hasn't been established yet in AI language. The data of a financial plan isn't nearly as important as the assumptions. You can take data of vastly different proportions and apply assumptions to that data to make the financial plan look one way or the other. So it's really our rates of return, it's our inflation rates, it's our expense rates. Those are the things that matter the most in a financial plan, and unfortunately, those are art-based, not science-based.
Right.
So you still need someone who has personally delivered hundreds or thousands of financial plans over time to know when certain things apply. And I just think that it's going to be many years before the AI is there yet.
And maybe one of the challenges in today's AI, right, which are primarily these large language models, these LLMs, is that they're essentially just scraping data. Right. They're scraping data from the internet, which to a large extent is forming the basis of the assumptions that it is trying to make. Right. And I don't know about you, but it seems to me when I go out and browse the internet on any particular topic, 90 of your top 100 results all seem to kind of say the same thing.
Sure.
And I don't know whether it's bias or just, groupthink or whatever the case may be. But, if fundamentally the assumptions that today's AI systems are being built on is simply just gathering what's the most popular opinion that's out there, that seems like it might maybe lead to some bad conclusions.
I think that's a really dangerous way to make decisions. It's based on popularity. You're never right or wrong because people agree with you. You're right because your analysis is right. And so, I think outsourcing our decision making to popular opinion is probably a really bad idea. So I think we're going to keep doing the work ourselves here until AI advances quite a bit. But in the meantime, using it as a data librarian, I think, is highly effective. Running scans over our data to see, if certain triggers have been met or if certain thresholds have been breached in order to do rebalancing or in order to, create cash or to know when required minimum distributions are going to start without having to run separate lists in spreadsheets. I think it'll definitely maybe grease the wheels a little bit, but I don't see it as a position to replace our decision-making capabilities at this point. Now, if we could take AI and do, the 50% easiest things that we do and then spend all of our time on the 50% hardest things that we can do, I think that would be a great use case for it. But you got to keep in mind that you can go back to the Luddites of 1811 to 1816 trying to destroy all the textile mills because, their jobs were going to get replaced. And that trend had started in the late 1600s with the loomers and all the other textile type manufacturers. So we've had this natural fear of replacement for hundreds of years. And what we find is that when we hold back progress, we're doing just that, letting automation or machines or equipment do mundane tasks is allowing the rest of us to move on to higher level activities. And so I don't want to stand in the way of progress because of fear. Now, there may be legitimate fears, like what do you give the AI control of? You don't want it to be able to launch missiles. I mean, I think that's probably just common sense, right? You and I had talked once about the report of the training missions they were running with the AI. Do you remember this? And,
yes.
It had some sort of restriction of it couldn't kill. Do you remember this story?
Yes.
And so it came up with a solution to kill the operator,
right?
Because it was holding it back from its mission, right?
Which is the classic Hollywood narrative around AI and robots, right? Is that fundamentally they figure out that humans are the biggest threat to humans, and so therefore you have to kill the human to protect.
Yeah. So I mean, they found this in a real life example. Now, luckily, it wasn't actually connected to any real military equipment, but at least in the simulator, it started trying to wipe out the person operating it because it was holding it back. And then it started trying to destroy the communications towers so that it could pretend like it wasn't getting the message. So, I mean, I think in the wrong hands, we could definitely be dealing with something dangerous here. But so I think regulation really is necessary, but it's really more about controlling what you hook it up to, as opposed to holding back progress and trying to save menial jobs in the present.
Well, I think that's a great point on AI. To me, it just seems like the latest sort of innovation in technology, right? And to your example of the looms and the textile mills, that was technology, right? Maybe not in the way that we talk about it today, right? We associate technology to computing systems and what have you, but really technology.
The wheel is technology.
The wheel is technology, right? The banging a rock on something is technology. I can remember coming up, in school as the internet was just sort of becoming a thing, and the fear at the time about everybody's jobs were going to be replaced because the internet. Okay. Have jobs changed in the last 25, 30, 40 years as the internet has grown and become more pervasive? Absolutely they have. But to your point, a lot of the things that have been replaced are the menial tasks, right, that were time consuming. It's probably not a coincidence that some of the fastest, most explosive advancements in technology that have inarguably made people's lives better and more effective have happened really in this computing era where computers have incrementally taken over more and more of the mundane tasks that sucked up our time.
Well, sure. Yeah, I mean, when I was in my late 20s, I went to a dentist office where they were still using a typewriter to, type out little cards and put them in a paper file. And I thought to myself, man, I haven't seen this happen anywhere else, right? Like it was so outdated. But then, it got me thinking about how much time they were wasting by physically shuffling pieces of paper around and using a typewriter, and how much storage space they were taking up, with these little cards that they were managing. And so, but I do think that there's been a great reduction in the amount of paper that we use, the amount of loss that we use, the amount of illegibility that we face, and all those different things. So I do think that computerization has greatly enhanced the efficiency of operations. Now, I think in some cases it's degraded customer service. I think it's allowed more things to get lost. There's something imposing about a file cabinet full of physical paper, but you can put that stuff on your computer and never see it again, right? So, but I think there's always a cost to progress, and so we want to make sure that we maximize the benefits of these type of things. I think AI will definitely benefit us over time. I don't think it's something you should jump onto as an investing bandwagon. I think it's way ahead of its time right now. I think it's still in sort of the carnival phase. It's more of an interesting trinket to go on and see if it will do your homework for you, that kind of stuff. But you have to be really careful about the results that you get because the results are spurious right now at best.
Right. And from an impact, to the financial advising profession, what it maybe seems it'll present the opportunity to do over time is for advisors, servicing teams, investment teams, all the folks that are involved in helping people organize their financial lives. I, for one, would be incredibly happy if I could spend less time moving numbers around and more time really digging deep into the problem-solving aspect for a client. Absolutely.
And I think the majority of our clients right now still appreciate that human interaction. The robot doesn't care about your emotions. It's not in the business of trying to mitigate your fears. And so unless you program that in, you're not going to get that type of treatment. So, around here, we understand your feelings, we understand your goals, we understand your thoughts. They're not just abstractions to us. We've helped hundreds of people, thousands of people reach their goals over time, and we're going to continue doing that until we retire. So, I'm not afraid of AI. I'm happy to implement it in areas where it's useful, making sure that security is up to speed. But I think we can definitely get a little bit of leverage out of it, but I don't think it'll be sitting at my desk anytime soon.
So maybe the message here, to close it out, to answer the question is, certainly there's opportunity. It's probably very, very, very early, just in technology in general. Is it going to change the landscape of wealth management? Probably. Hopefully in ways that are going to benefit the client by allowing us to spend more time, as you said, doing the things that are really chiefly in the domain of a human. Right. Leave the rest of it to a computer.
Right.
We don't need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it said that we always way overestimate what we can get in a year, and we always underestimate what we can do in 10 years. So I think that for the next few years, we just let this play out. But I think when we wake up 10 years from now, we're going to be surprised at how far this stuff has evolved. And I think the same thing happened with the internet. 2001, we were anything with .com in it was blowing up. Toys R Us, or Toys.com was valued at like 10 times Toys R Us, even though they didn't have any physical location or any actual assets. And they had a business model that was losing money. We want to be careful to avoid those type of traps.
Right. Perfect. Well, I think that's a good place to kind of wrap this one up. So good discussion, certainly something that we'll pay attention to and take advantage of as technology evolves. So thanks again for tuning in, taking some time out of your busy day to join us here on The Point. Again, if you've got a question or a thought that you'd like to hear us chat about up here, feel free to visit our website, basepointwealth.com, or send an email, info@basepointwealth.com, with your question or your discussion topic. And who knows, maybe we'll chat about it out of the hat here one of these days. So until next time, take care.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Point Podcast, sponsored by Basepoint Wealth. As always, you can submit questions or topics you'd like to hear discussed to info@basepointwealth.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Basepoint Wealth LLC is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to consult with a qualified financial advisor and/or tax professional before implementing any strategy discussed herein. Past performance is not indicative of future performance.